What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday and sometimes on the weekend, mainly covering the NFL right now, but we'll also, preview, talk about the NBA, MLB as the playoffs approach, doing, some playoff predictions and some NHL stuff in there. But right now, NFL season getting underway. It's the most exciting time. Make sure if you haven't already to like and subscribe if you're here for NFL content, because it's going to be coming at you really fast. And week one is already in the books. So if you want to check out my recap videos, go there. And last video, also predicting some week two matchups. We'll also use tomorrow our AI model to predict week two that outpredicted me by a couple of games, I believe, but we'll check in on that tomorrow. But in today's episode, it's going to be a tier list of ranking every team after week one. This is more so of how did they look in week one, not for the whole season, but it's going to be a fun video because obviously when it's week one, people are going to overreact, including myself in this one, and to the good and bad, because we do get a lot of good and bad in week one. Obviously 16 teams win, 16 teams don't, but every win, every loss comes different. So with that being said, our categories are obviously elite, the teams that looked phenomenal, like Super Bowl contenders after week one. Saints last year, shout out the Saints. And then better than I expected, just played better than what I expected, having them heading into the season. Then the about, did their job. Wasn't, thoroughly impressed, but did what I expected. Below what I expected, obviously did not meet my expectations. And then dog poop just did not play well at all, looking like the worst team. But this is, just for week one, so it's not going to be, for the full season, because obviously things change dramatically. We get teams that start 5-0 and don't even make up the playoffs. Shout out my Vikings for doing that a couple times. But with that being said, we'll get right into it, starting with the Arizona Cardinals. And the Cardinals are my pick to win the NFC West. They were able to take care of the Saints in New Orleans. It's a tough place to play. Kyler Murray was sick. It's a little bit below what I expected, but I'm going to put them in about what I expected. I expected that defense to do its job, and it did, holding the Saints to 13 points. Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison were pretty good. Obviously, I'd like the offense to score a little bit more. I was expecting, more of a field day. But, they took care of the job, and, it's week one. So even if the Saints are expected to be, this top pick, one of the worst teams in the league, week one, they still have hope. They're going to come out feisty. But the Cardinals, did their job. Wasn't the best, a little bit below my expectations for a lock of the week. But, Kyler Murray made some good plays. I think the running game will continue to get going. Marvin Harrison will continue to improve. And this defense, with Jonathan Gannon, played solid. When you only allow 13 points, you'll take that against any team. Will also continue to get better and build off the end of last season. And hopefully they will, because they're my pick to win the NFC West, like I said in my preview video before the season. So, shout out them. And then next up, the Atlanta Falcons. I'm also going to put them in the about what I expected. Michael Penix had a pretty good, debut for like the home opener. Basically entering his first full rookie season. Started a couple of games last year. Looks good in those, a little inaccurate. In this game, he got some ups and downs. Some throws, he was a little bit inaccurate, but he also made some plays. That rushing touchdown he had was amazing, just diving for it and being able to lead the team. They're going to be scrappy. They're going to have some good offensive plays, playmakers like Bijan, and the defense can be feisty with Raheem Morris, like we saw against Tampa, giving them some troubles, especially early on. And they're going to be scrappy. I think, this is what the Falcons you're going to get probably day in, day out. Next up, the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, gosh. I mean, just the way they lost, I almost want to put them in below what I expected. But, I'll put them in the about. I think we saw how great their offense is going to be with Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, obviously Lamar Jackson at the helm. This offense is going to be electric. The defense, unfortunately, choked it at the end. But, they're also playing the Bills and Josh Allen, who's the best quarterback in the league. So, I think I got to give the Ravens their props. They played a great game. Obviously, they choked it at the end. But, that defense, they also made some plays, and they held the Bills to 10 points in the first half. Unfortunately, with the Ravens, you also get, that one critical mistake where they let their foot off the gas or just that turnover. That's what killed them in the playoffs last year, 3 turnovers against the Bills. And while they were good for most of the game and Derrick Henry was amazing for 99% of the game. That one fumble can change things. And I didn't like the call not going for it on fourth down because you still have all 3 timeouts, so you still can get a stop. But I want to put the ball in Lamar, Derrick Henry's hands on 4th and short and see if they can pick it up, given the way that defense was gassed at the end of that game. But next up, the Buffalo Bills. Better than I expected. Obviously, I predicted the Ravens to win this one. But, Buffalo's offense, Keon Coleman looks like he took another step in this league. Josh Allen building off that MVP season with arguably playing the best game we've seen yet. James Cook looking great. That offensive line is really feisty with Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown. They got some dogs, and, they came out better than I expected. I did not expect them to win this one, but that offense really picked on an elite Baltimore secondary, and, that Josh Allen was able to make Superman plays. And Ed Oliver, you just need that one disruptor like the Chiefs have with Chris Jones, all these years, Philly with a guy like Jalen Carter. He made plays, and, it was, I believe he got a sack, and then that big, that forced a field goal early on, and then that big fumble to change the game. So I think Buffalo came out better than expected. Obviously, the defense, didn't live up to the hype, but, they're going up against the best rushing attack of all time, in my opinion, and they got the turnovers when they needed to and got the stops, obviously, at the end of the game. So better than I expected. Shout out the Bills. Did not expect them to win this one, but they came out and did and made a statement that they're the best team in the AFC right now. Carolina Panthers, below what I expected. Disappointed with Bryce Young, obviously. I've mentioned before, the only good thing I thought he did was use his legs well. But the turnovers kind of looked like Bryce Young year 1, year 2, just uncomfortable at the beginning of year 2. Did not look like the second half Bryce Young. And they just came out flat. Put up 10 points. Not really that great. Could arguably put them in dog poop the way that the run defense was against Jacksonville, and honestly might. But, just disappointing considering all the expectations. You get Ty McMillan to give another playmaker to this offense. They just look sloppy against a Jacksonville team that, was really bad last year, given, Liam Cohen, Trevor Lawrence back. They're going to improve Travis Hunter, but they basically got, 26-10. It was just not a great game at all for Carolina. They played sloppy and, really could not work themselves back into this one. I'm curious to see how they look in week 2 and if Bryce Young can get back on track, because I picked Carolina to win this game, and obviously I'm going to be disappointed. Then, what happened. Next up, the Chicago Bears. I'm going to go with, about what I expected. I think for the Bears, it's going to take time. Obviously, people, have high expectations. Week 1, Ben Johnson, super creative offense. Obviously, what he did with the Lions. But, Caleb Williams showed some good flashes starting off 10 for 10. But we also saw the inaccuracy, especially at the end of this game. But, the defense, I thought, played really well through 3 quarters, obviously missing Jalen Johnson, TJ Edwards, some guys in the secondary. And, I think it's just going to be what you expect, though. Some high highs, some low lows with the growing pains. And then obviously the defense giving up 21 points in the 4th quarter. They just look gassed. But, I thought they looked solid. They looked like a competent 7-8 win team that, is what I expected, going into the year. So shout out the Bears. I think they played well. And obviously it stinks when you have to lose that one heartbreaker at home in front of the fans. But, it's unfortunate they weren't able to get it done against their NFC North rival, the Vikings. But, I think, like we said, Caleb Williams starting off the game red hot, used his legs a lot more, and I think avoided sacks at a way better rate. They improved the offensive line, which I think paid off, and it showed in that game, not taking a lot of sacks. So, I think overall you got to be, and I would say happy if you're a Bears fan, because obviously you lose the game and when you should have won probably by a lot, the way the game was going for a while through 3 quarters. But I think you get what you get. It's going to be an improved team, an improved product with Ben Johnson, but it's going to take time. And that's what I expected. And hopefully Bears fans, have that patience as well. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals. This is tough because obviously when you're playing Cleveland, for Bengals fans, week 1, this is better than you expect because honestly, they haven't won a week 1 game since being my Vikings in 2021. So you might honestly take it. I'll go, about what I expected, though. I think the offense was going to have some trouble, this offensive line with this Browns pass rush. And it did. And, the Bengals historically got off to slow starts. I thought they were going to be able to win. And they did. And thankfully, the Cleveland Browns special teams, missed field goals and stuff. But the offense had some highs early on, scoring 14 points, like 2 out of their first 3 drives were touchdown drives, but then really stalled out. But this defense, was able to hold its own against the Cleveland Browns offense that, can run the ball, thrive off the play action, but they got some timely turnovers. So the defense is better than you expected. Obviously, the offense is below, so kind of meets in the middle about what I expected, a sloppy win. The Cleveland Browns, I'll give them their respect. I think, they were better than I expected. Obviously, they didn't get the win, but a missed extra point, a missed field goal. They played like the better team for the most part. Myles Garrett and that front seven can just get after it. And the offense looked competent with Joe Flacco. Obviously, you're going to get some turnover plays in there. But it was also one unlucky pick with Jerry Jeudy just having it deflects up. So you know what happens. But they look competent, and I think that's all you can ask for. And just given last year, I think Browns fans are just happy that they can be competitive for a couple of games. Kevin Stefanski is still a great coach, in my opinion, top 10 coach in the league. And this, if they just have competent quarterback play, Jerry Jeudy will continue to get better. Dylan Sampson looks like a stud, and this Cleveland defense can fly around and frustrate quarterbacks. And even an MVP candidate like Joe Burrow held him to like 100-something yards. So, yeah, shout out the Browns for keeping it competitive. The Dallas Cowboys, also better than I expected. I think, when you lose Micah Parsons, they did make the playoffs last year, low expectations. That offense with Brian Schottenheimer looked very good. And early on, especially going into a tough environment like Philly, I know they didn't have Jalen Carter. Shout out Dak Prescott for beating him. But that offensive line with Tyler Bicker looks really good. Looks like Tyler Guyton took a step, which was what you were hoping for in this offensive line. And they were just able to hold their own. Javonte Williams, obviously, a couple of rushing touchdowns were just getting those hard-nosed yards. And, the stat line didn't look great for Dak, but he was balling. And if CeeDee Lamb just doesn't drop 4 balls, they probably win this game. And he won't, again, because he's, a top 5 receiver in this league for a reason. So shout out the Cowboys, really, for, going into a tough environment, competing right to the end. I think this team can be more competent. And, this defense is going to have its growing pains with Micah Parsons. But, towards the end of the game, they are able to contain that Philly run game for the most part. Maybe Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland, if they can make a couple plays, get a couple pick sixes, like we're used to seeing, this team can win more games than we expected. The Denver Broncos, the defense, looked great. I think that's expected, and I'm high on the Denver Broncos in my playoff predictions. I have them, beating the Chiefs, even though I don't have them winning the division. But that offense just below what I expected. I think the Cam Ward, we knew going in it was going to be a tough game. And Denver's defense, I held them to the highest tier number 1 defense. They did their job, maybe even better, just given the field position. When the Titans would start like their own at the Broncos 35 and not score any points, just with sacks, penalties, very undisciplined game. But Bo Nix, I don't know. That did not look great, given, the improvements, getting more weapons like Evan Ingram. You still have Cortland Sutton, a great play caller in Sean Payton. I think they just got to stick to running the ball more. I think that they kind of unleashed Bo Nix in week 1. Obviously did not turn out great. They still got the win, but definitely below my expectations. This was pretty much my other lock of the week, and it was kind of a nail-biter for a while. And, for Denver fans, you're obviously going to be happy with the win. But, even there are some, like, moral wins for the Titans in this one. That defense looked really good. And going into that tough environment, the fans are rowdy. You'll take the win, but Denver fans, it did not meet their expectations just on this offensive side. Just Bo Nix was making some careless reads. That second pick was really bad. And, he had a lot of time to throw. He wasn't getting pressure, but when he gets pressured, those were when the 2 picks came, and he was just inaccurate. And for Denver fans, I think you hope to obviously see improvement, build off that really good rookie campaign. But, it might just be growing pains, but, for some people, they might think he's entering a sophomore slump where that is his ceiling and he can only take this Denver team so far. I'm not ready to go there just because it's week 1. I don't want to overreact too much, but this offense has got to be better because that was definitely below my expectations and Denver's expectations as well, despite winning the game. Next up, the Detroit Lions, an NFC North rival for my Vikings. Obviously, below what you expect. They almost looked like dog poop, but Isaac Tesla maybe saved that because what a catch that was. Arguably catch of the year already. So shout out Isaac Tesla, man. What a catch to end the game. But the offensive line got bullied. The defensive line could not get any pressure on Jordan Love really for a majority of this game. I think that'll come as Aiden Hutchinson gets healthier and more into this groove. But the running game couldn't get anything going. This high prolific offense did nothing, 6 points most of the game. Obviously below your expectations. The defense, I think, kind of locked in the second half, almost forced Jordan Love to make a couple uncomfortable reads. But for the most part, obviously he's not meeting Lions' expectations. This was something they were not used to. It definitely played a below-average game. But I also think they just ran into a juggernaut in the Green Bay Packers, which is the next team, and they are going in elite, the first elite team. They made a statement. They heard all the noise. They could not beat elite teams last year. Well, they basically won by 3 touchdowns against the Detroit Lions. And they said a statement with adding Micah Parsons, Jordan Love taking another step, Matthew Golden, another weapon. This team's ready to compete. And, as a Vikings fan, I already said I'm scared of the Green Bay Packers. They have a really solid team. Sorry, just dealing with allergies. That's why I had to take a break. But, the Packers are elite. They were top 10 offense and defense last year. They're going to continue to do that, probably top 5 defense. And if this offensive game with that elite rushing attack and Josh Jacobs, an elite play caller, Matt LaFleur, could be top 5 as well, and a scary team. Next up, the Houston Texans. For me, this is what I expected. Elite defense holding the Rams to 14 points. The offense with this offensive line can't do shit. So that's, I think, what we're going to get. The Texans, same team as last year. Elite defense, offense with CJ Stroud can put up points against, the bad teams, but it's not his fault. I like CJ Stroud. It's just this offensive line is so bad, and you traded away your best offensive lineman, an elite blindside tackle, and Larry Tunsil. I know he is regressing a little bit and does take some penalties, but still your best player. And the guys you acquired, as a Vikings fan, Cam Robinson was okay, but he's not better than Larry Tunsil. He had his good games and bad games. Ed Ingram, not that great. I don't know, Houston. Disappointing. CJ Stroud calling out the team for just being lazy in preparation. And this offense needs to find it because, I do like guys like Nico Collins, but if this offensive line can't give CJ Stroud time to throw, the running game won't be effective. It's going to be a long season for Houston, and maybe a team like Jacksonville can end up taking that division. The Indianapolis Colts. Got to put them in a lead with Green Bay after week 1. Man, what a dominant performance. And I had a tough time picking between them and the Broncos in week 2 at home. I think this will be a good sign for Daniel Jones. He first team since like the 1970s to not score on any drive or to score on every drive. They touchdown, field goal, they were getting points. And Daniel Jones looked great. That running game with Jonathan Taylor looked great. That defense obviously creating turnovers. Latu dropping in, getting a pick. My boy Cam Bynum getting picks. Charvarius Ward frustrating Jalen Wall, Tyreek Hill, and Tua obviously getting rattled. Indianapolis looked like either them or Green Bay best team in football. They came out and set a statement in week 1. But like I said, I'm really curious how they do against week 2 against the best defense in the NFL. They are at home, so I'm excited to see if they can, if Daniel Jones still looks good to competent. I think this Indy team could be a dark horse playoff team to maybe make some noise because this will be a great test against a playoff caliber team. Next up, Jacksonville Jaguars. Better than I expected. This Travis Etienne looked amazing, and now they trade away Tank Bigsby. They have full hope in him. Trevor Lawrence took care of the ball. This defense was flying around. This looks like a team that could win the AFC South. I know it's only after week 1, but that's my overreaction. They just look like a complete team. Frank Alawanu getting after it, I think had a fumble and an interception off of Bryce Young. So he was out there balling. And like I said, there's still things to work on. Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. only had 1 catch. Travis Hunter had some catches, like 5 or 6, but not necessarily for big yards. So there's stuff still to work on, but be able to set the rushing attack, thrive off the play action, Trevor Lawrence finding his tight ends, and just make minimal mistakes. I think they'll only continue to improve. This was a disciplined football team that, handled business, and where most people, I think, thought was a 50-50 matchup, they controlled that game against the Panthers for majority of it. Once again, I'm excited to see if they can build off that in week 2. Definitely better than I expected. The Kansas City Chiefs, I did pick them to win this one, and I think it's tough. Probably going to go just either about or below what I expected. Obviously, when the Chiefs lose, it's below everyone's expectations, just given they still won 50 games last year with a depleted roster. But losing Xavier Worthy did hurt. Mahomes looked better than I expected. I think put the team on his back, but this defense just looks another step slower. Chris Jones, didn't have the best week one. They're fighting on the sidelines. They just got really manhandled by the Chargers, and losing Rashawn Slater, I thought would give the Chiefs a big advantage. They really couldn't get after him. Herbert did do a good job using his legs, but the Chargers receivers, Quinn Johnson, Keenan Allen, Lai McConkey, just exposed this Chiefs secondary. Did not look great, and the running game did not look better at all. I thought maybe Pacheco, a year off of the injury, would look better, but this run game really couldn't do anything. So outside of Mahomes, this team looked worse than I expected. Just a disappointing start. I think the same problems they had in the Super Bowl, just with the secondary, the lack of run game, it's still the same problems that costed them that Super Bowl against Philly. So, overall, not a great start to Kansas City in week 2 against Philly at home. Should be a fun one, but they cannot start off 0-2. But the team they played, the Chargers, better than I expected. Herbert and Greg Roman, I was very impressed with their offense. The way Herbert used his legs to just escape, make throws on the run. Greg Roman trusting him to sling it, which he did more at the end of last year. The first half of the season, Chargers were really boring. It was still an effective offense, limited turnovers were there, just pound, little play action pass. This time he let Herbert cook. And I think if they can continue to let that happen, Quinn Johnson looked like he took another step. Keenan Allen looks like he's still got some juice left in the tank. And then Lai McConkey obviously looked great. And then I think Omari and Hampton will continue to get better. And this defense, for the most part, for the Chargers, looked solid. Mahomes made some spectacular plays at the end, but that's going to happen. But holding them to 6 points at the half. Shout out LA, man. Jim Harbaugh knows how to win games. Sorry. Once again, I have to blow my nose. These allergies are really catching up during the fall. We have the LA Rams. I thought it was honestly, this was the game kind of just about what I expected. I expected that defense to feast. And I think they were going up against the top 5 defense in the Texans, arguably the best defense in the NFL, but the Rams still did its job, getting Puka the ball. And I think, despite these Tyler missed most of training camp, Kyron Williams was able to score. So overall, about what I expected, kind of a slow start. The Rams always start the season off slow, but just being able to get a scrappy dub at home is what I expected. And I don't think Rams fans, we're expecting to light up Houston, even though this offense is great. Puka's great. You brought Devontae Adams. It's just going to take some time, just given all the time Matthew Stafford missed and going up against an elite team or elite defense like the Houston Texans are. The Raiders, I think, better than I expected. That defense did do its job pulling the Patriots to 13 points. Obviously, that was my big question mark. This offense is what I expected. Gunslinger, Geno Smith, even better. I mean, Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker made some plays, and hopefully Brock Bowers does play next week. GNT got in the end zone. I expect him to play even better. But this Raiders team looked even feistier than, what I expected. Sorry, have to blow it. But I think this Raiders team could be a sneaky wildcard team. I think, I was even more impressed just seeing how Geno could sling the ball because, man, he did have that one bad pick, but, it is what it is. You're going to get that when you're dropping back a lot. I do expect them to rely more on the run game, but, they set a statement week 1 going on the road. West Coast to East Coast time is never easy, and the Raiders have traditionally struggled, but they made a statement out there. So shout out them. I'm excited to see them. Also next week, will GNT build off his week 1 performance and continue to get better. Dolphins, first dog poop team. Don't really have to say much. Offense looked like crap. Defense couldn't get a stop. That's all. There's a lot of, interesting things going on in Miami just with the Tyreek Hill drama. Is Mike McDaniel going to be fired? Chris Greer, there's already reports. Is Tua the guy? Miami, how they bounce back versus New England is one of the most intriguing things because I really just don't see it. I did predict them to beat the Colts, and that did not come to fruition. My Minnesota Vikings, I'm going to go with about what I expected. That defensive line was able to take over at the end of the game. The secondary still has some question marks. Some guys were open. Caleb Williams just missed him. And then just the offense, the growing pains. I'm expecting Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones, especially Jordan Mason, to be able to pound the rock, which they were able to do. Justin Jefferson able to make plays, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison once he gets back. And this offensive line, for the most part, was elite. Justin School didn't have a great game, but Darisaw is going to be coming back. So I expect a great up front of the trenches and just some growing pains with McCarthy. We saw 3/4 his major struggles, but at the end, we saw his high highs, and they were very high. And I think we'll just get, hopefully, it's a more steady ship. It was his first game, but, there's going to be some growing pains just basically as a rookie for him. But they're going to rely on the run game, win up front, and just a great team with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. That's about what I expected. A good, strong start to the season and just getting a dub against a scrappy rival on the road in New England. The New England Patriots, it's tough. I think, slightly about to below. I think this offense definitely did not meet expectations. When you add a guy like Stephon Diggs to the caliber, I think I'll throw them in below average just because that offense really disappointed me. I thought they had an opportunity to feast on that Raiders team, and I was expecting more of a shootout. Unfortunately, the offense really couldn't get much, and they didn't really run the ball like as much as I wanted them to. Trayvon Harrison, when he did touch the ball, looked more explosive. So I think Mike Vrabel, a team like that, obviously the way he coached up Derrick Henry, I think they're going to want to pound the ball more and just, get back to the running style. Drake May throwing off the play action. Defense looks solid considering you missed Christian Gonzalez, but the pass defense did get let up a little bit. So I think they'll continue to grow and get better. It was just a disappointment. The defense, played about to above average, but that offense really just below average for me, which is why I'm going to put them there. So overall, could have been a good game. It was still close, came down the wire, but just disappointing ending. The Saints, surprisingly, just considering that they're contending for the number 1 overall pick, better than I expected. Spencer Rattler looked pretty good. They almost tied the game at the end. He made a great throw. The receiver could just not haul it in and play a Cardinals team that I thought was going to win the NFC West. I was impressed. And obviously, I know it's week 1. Everyone has a chance, but Kamara, that offense looked pretty competent, and the defense kept them in that, being able to hold Kyler to under 200 passing yards, limit James Conner. It was a scrappy game, and they looked better than I expected, and the Saints may not be in better than I expected the rest of the season, so I'm going to give them credit where credit is due. The Giants, the defense was pretty much about or better than I expected. They really got to Jane Daniels to make him uncomfortable, but that offense is just so frustrating. No run game. Russell Wilson couldn't do anything. Will they start Jackson Dart soon? Yeah, that's the case of what might happen. And then the New York Jets, better than I expected. That offense played like the best offense in football in week 1. I know they didn't end up winning the game, but Justin Fields, you have to be impressed by him. He did amazing. Best game of his career. And this Jets team, if the defense could just get a little bit better, maybe I have high optimism for them. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles. About what I expected. The defense is going to make some plays, which they did in the second half. That run game with Hurts and Barkley is going to be deadly. And I think they'll continue to get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith going and then, continue to play to that Super Bowl level. But they got the job done at home in front of those fans. And they didn't even have Jalen Carter. So shout out them. Steelers, also better than I expected. The defense made some timely plays, even though it wasn't a great day for them overall. That being able to stop the 2-point conversion, that hit to end the game to knock the ball out of Garrett Wilson. But obviously the story was the offense looked great. Aaron Rodgers, a 4-touchdown game, looked like 2020 MVP Aaron Rodgers. I was very impressed with him. Calvin Austin, DK Metcalf taking screens, 30-plus yards, looked amazing. Jalen Warren making some plays. I have him on my fantasy football team for a reason. This could be a breakout year. And if this Steelers offense is anything competent to like a top 15, watch out because they could be a scary playoff team. Next up, the Seahawks, below what I expected. The defense of McDonald was about what I expected. They made some great plays on special teams, blocking a field goal. But that Clint Kubiak offense and my boy Sam Darnold, I was just disappointed in that week 1. And I get it. You're going up against Robert Saleh, one of the best defensive minds. But after that second drive, putting up 6 points the rest of the way and your defense kind of gifting you some great field position, they couldn't get it done at the end. And I know Jack Smith and Jigba is going to be great, but this run game with Kenneth Walker has to be better. Sam Darnold has to find other guys besides Jigba, and they just can't turn the ball over at the end. So just a disappointing showing, obviously, when you put up 13 points at home, week 1 in front of your fans. It was disappointing to see. The 49ers, though, about what I expected. They're going to rely on McCaffrey in that run game. He's going to be a playmaker. Brock Purdy's going to make some great plays, going to make some below-average reads at points, which he did in this game, throwing 2 picks. But that defense was still very impressive for the most part. Robert Saleh kind of revived that group. Fred Warner was flying all over the place. And when it seems healthy, they can be dangerous. And they really did outperform Seattle, just some special teams. They got rid of Jake Moody, which I think was the right move because he was costing them some games last year and almost cost them this one. But they clutched up when they need to, which they weren't able to do last year. And it was, a good performance, not a great performance, about what you expect from the 49ers. I think they do have some weaknesses on the roster, unlike last year's. But when they're healthy, they're a scary team, and they can prove that they can go on the road in a tough environment like Seattle and win. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'd go about what I expected. Same with the Falcons. Baker Mayfield's going to sling the ball. He made some great throws. I had them win this game. But they're going to play scrappy games, and Baker's just going to make some plays, which is what you want to see. The defense, for the most part, did its job. Antoine Winfield made a great play at the end, which could have won the Falcons the game if he caught it and hauled it in. It was kind of like a boomer bust hit. He made the play. The Tampa Bay team is going to be tough to beat. Todd Bowles is going to coach his defense up, hopefully, again, to a top 15 unit. They were kind of below average last year, but they're going to be a decent team. The offense is going to be high passing electric. Bucky Irving's going to make some plays out of the backfield, catching a touchdown, about what you expected. Similar for Tennessee. This offense in that game was atrocious. Obviously below to dog poop. But also, it's tough because Cam Ward's going into the number one defense. I kind of expected that. But the defense, to its credit, was better than I expected. Really rattled Bo Nix and this Denver team that had such high expectations that even Broncos fans winning an 8-point game at home were not happy about. So shout out the Titans defense. But once again, Brian Callahan, I don't know if he's the answer. We'll see how they look in week 2 against another tough defense in the Rams back at home. And then Washington, it was okay. It was about what you expect. The rushing attack, Jaquan Brisket, the 6th-round running back, looked amazing. Jay Daniels used his legs. Deebo Samuel made a couple plays. A slow start with Terry in that front 7, was getting after Jane a little bit. So the offense was a little bit below what you expect, but the defense was pretty much above what you expect when you hold a team to 6 points, no touchdowns. That's what you're going to get. But overall, was a fun week 1. I'm really excited to see how they match up against the elite team I have in the Green Bay Packers in week 2 on Thursday Night Football, which is tomorrow. So this is the last day without football, week 2, obviously starting tomorrow. So let me know your predictions on who wins that. But overall, this is the final tier list of how each team looked in week 1. Give me your thoughts. Am I too high, too low on a team, or what you agreed with? Because it's always fun getting some agreements too. But as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. We'll come at you with a Thursday night football preview tomorrow and obviously recapping that on Friday and our AI model predictions. But with that being said, as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.